The year is 2154. The year is 2154, and something horrible has happened on Earth, near as I can tell, as is the case with all movies.
Right, all like science fiction movies.
But that's really not material to what's happening here. We just take it, something horrible has happened on Earth, and we need what is on the planet. Who cares? I don't even know what the name of the planet is.
It's a moon, actually.
No, I'm saying I don't know what the name of the planet is.
Pandora.
Pandora is the moon.
Right.
And we of this other planet.
Oh, right.
And there's a war going. They have some material that we need. That's all you need to know. That's
Okay, let's keep it real.
Right.
Oil.
Okay, right.
The equivalent
exactly.
of oil.
Right. They have oil.
Right.
We need
or
oil.
gold.
So this big company, let's call them. What would you like to go with?
Halliburton?
Halliburton, sure. I was going to Halliburton in conjunction with Blackwater.
Sure. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's exactly it, though.
They need to get this oil. There is an indigenous population on Pandora. The people who live there are called Iraqis.
Or Native Americans,
The
depending on how
Pandorans
you're
are who
looking
you've
Or
seen.
Dakota Sioux. Right.
Right.
That's right.
Totally.
Exactly. You want to
Exactly.
go old school. The Pandorans have long blue faces. They're very tall and gangly. They look like Usain Bolt, except blue. And they are very quick. So the story is a battle between the Blackwater part of Halliburton and the science part of Halliburton, and an avatar. It gets a little tricky, but the idea is that we can put Pandorans in among the people by this avatar method, where you, a human being, would sort of go into this chamber, fall asleep, and then become this other person. And
Right. A very literal use of the word avatar.
yeah, very totally literal use of the word avatar. And our hero is a guy named Jake Sully, played by Sam Worthington. He's paralyzed when he is the avatar. He regains the use of his legs. The idea is will he, as the science people want, learn enough about them to come to a peaceful settlement where maybe they give up some of this limitless supply of oil, or will the military guys win and they will simply annihilate the Pandorans? And that is the conundrum of the movie in 3D.
Okay.
By the way, I don't think I could possibly have done a worse job.
In explaining. No, you got the message across.
I don't think that was James Cameron's pitch.
It's probably a little shorter. He doesn't need a pitch. He's James Cameron. So that's part of the reason we've been waiting for this movie for a long time. Matt, he hasn't done a movie in 15 years?
He hasn't, well, he's done a couple of documentaries, but he hasn't done a narrative feature since Titanic, which was 12 years ago.
Yeah,
Right.
97,
Yeah, so I'll get to what I thought of it. First of all, it's Dances with Aliens. Dances with Wolves, but with aliens, okay? It's obvious, like the Dakota Sioux, et cetera, et cetera. So the plot is not revolutionary, and I don't want to tell you exactly what happened, obviously, right? But it's standard romance, standard, go and the natives versus the bad
White man
guys.
meets the noble savage.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was, of course, really nicely done. It's James Cameron. And here are two sets of people who are going to love this movie. One, liberals. This might be the most liberal movie ever made, okay? I mean, it's so obvious that that's Halliburton and Blackwater combined, going after the native oil.
Yeah, I mean, less so than Dances with Wolves and the Dakota Sioux. I mean, it's just, the Iraq metaphors are like, they're hammering you over the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've told my friends it's kind of like Dances with Wolves, but less subtle.
Right.
Right, exactly. And then the second set of people who are going to love this, and this is why it's going to be enormously successful, is foreign audiences. Because it's, in a lot of ways, can be interpreted as anti-American. Okay, it's not, right? But it seems like it's the Americans coming to Iraq to take their oil.
More than the Americans, not just the Americans, it's corporate America.
Yeah, and everybody hates corporate America. Even Americans hate corporate America.
Everybody hates corporate America
Right.
except the Obama administration.
Right. It does seem to be an anti-globalism story.
Right.
Although
And so
it's a different globe entirely, but
I think the other countries are going to love this. Love it, and it's going to do gangbusters worldwide. Now, me personally, I liked it a lot. I did. I mean, I didn't love it because, the blue guys were too... I just never got used to them. I thought I was going to get used to them, but they were still a little goofy to me. And there were a couple of things like that bothered me. There was nothing revolutionary about the plot. That wasn't great, etc. But in the end, if you like movies, you got to go to this. Like if you're an avid movie seer, you have to see it, I think. So I thought it was, it delivered what it was supposed to deliver. What do you think, Matt?
I thought this was a hell of a movie. I was hoping for something that was going to be really amazing, and if not changing cinema, it at least hits some marks that I think no one's really hit in a way.
What marks?
Well, I'll put it this way. For what, 2/3, 3/4 of the movie, you've got two main characters that are completely computer generated, and I totally bought it. It totally worked for me. And that's what I think is really impressive. Now, is the story weak? Absolutely, the story is weak. Is it really simplistic? Absolutely. And I think on a certain level that actually, I hesitate to say it, I kind of think that actually serves this movie well, because I feel like the production design and just the simple design, there's so much to see that a more complicated story, I feel like you'd start to miss things. And I actually, the simple guy in me in this particular case is kind of happy there wasn't too much to have to pay attention to.
Yeah, let me just say two quick things here before Ben jumps in. One, Titanic was really simple. The plot was as simple as it gets, and it did gangbusters. So I think he's got that formula down. Number two, I'm not a big guy on, oh, wow, special effects, etc. But you're right, Matt. I totally forgot that they weren't human. Like, and it's 3D. We should mention that, and they do a great job with the 3D.
It's not just 3D.
Right.
It's groundbreaking 3D. It's 3D like you've never seen it before, and I think they achieved that. I am not ever impressed by 3D. I mean, my apathy toward it is indescribable.
I think the use of 3D was effective, but not essential. I don't think it's essential to see this in 3D.
I'm curious what it'll be like to see it in 2D.
I will be too, because I thought it was interesting. I can't remember the last time I saw somebody doing. First of all, you don't really get many of the scenes that you see in a lot of 3D movies where it's the gimmick, where you get things that are pointing at the screen.
Oh no, there was none of that nonsense,
which was nice.
Right. There was none of this.
Right, exactly, exactly.
I think that actually hit him. Yeah. But what do you think of the heart of it? I mean, did you like it?
I thought it was simplistic. I had a very similar reaction that I had to Titanic, which was, there were a couple of moments where I had the hey, all right, who wrote that, right? But there's no question that this was splendid filmmaking, and and while I thought the plot was sort of rudimentary, and there was such and again, I feel silly criticizing this sometimes because it's not like I've written a lot of screenplays. By a lot, I mean any. But the foreshadowing was so obvious.
Oh,
it was
so painful.
Heavy.
And the movie is so heavy-handed. It's so ham-fisted, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you see everything coming a mile away.
Totally.
Right? There's absolutely no suspense.
Yeah,
absolutely no suspense.
There's actually one thing in the plot that bothered me, which was that the Na'vi, which are the local population, are so savvy in the forest, and they know exactly what's coming, and they're so great with that. And at the end, obviously you can see from the trailers there's some sort of attack, one way or another, right? So when the attack comes, they're like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. How could you not see the gigantic, machines coming through the forest?
Like when the wind changes, they know that the serpents have moved 4 inches to the left.
Right, exactly. But you didn't notice the steamroller?
Yeah. So it woke you from a slumber when it was 20 feet away? Yeah. Well, they were really out.
Yeah, so that was a significant. I mean, it was, I think, the only thing that bothered me about, come on, that's a bit much, right? Otherwise, it was fine, not great plot, but fine plot. But that was a big problem for you.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a big problem. It was, what I'm saying is that I had a similar reaction to Titanic. Now, that said, there was some splendid stuff in Titanic, like when they hitting the iceberg and the boat sinking. Great stuff. I mean,
and there's sequences in Titanic that, if you don't know that story, they set it up like, oh my God, they're going to miss the iceberg.
Right, that's true.
They're going to miss it.
Right,
they missed it. Oh,
no,
they didn't miss
it.
Right.
But it's just, now, I didn't have so many of those moments here, and I had the same sort of reaction to the plot. That said, the heavy-handedness and the obvious foreshadowing and some painful dialogue. That said, there were no painful performances in it. Everybody was fine and solid and delivered their over-the-top campiness when it was necessary, or just sort of silly delivery of lines. Everybody did a nice job. Everybody lent credibility to it. Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Sigourney Weaver. Everybody was fine. So, and it is splendid. It is a grand film. and
it's an epic.
It's
right?
an epic, and it is worth seeing, and it is impressive. And if effects impress you at all, like they got to me a little, and they almost never get to me. I was like, that's pretty cool. And you're
I'm right there with it.
Never for a second did you think, like you forget that these are totally. No, you said it. I'm sorry. That these are computer generated. Like you're like, no, these are the leads.
Right,
These 7 foot 8 inch blue thin people are the leads.
Right, and where it could be distracting in a lesser achievement technically, that some of the Avatar characters, and this was one of the things I hadn't realized, is that the avatars for the humans are supposed to somewhat look like the people driving them, right? So the Sigourney Weaver avatar looks like Sigourney Weaver.
It's weird. I didn't think the other ones did, but I guess other
I didn't
people.
think, although the Wes Studi guy kind of looked like the chief, I was like, okay,
A little.
I could see a little bit of Wes Studi in that, like a little bit of his mouth. But if that had been done less skillfully from a technical aspect, that wouldn't have worked.
Right, and there was some chance that with the blue guys, the tall Smurfs and the 3D, that they could have clowned it. Now it's James Cameron, so he's not going to clown it, right? But if he had in any way, like he was 5% off or 10% off, then it could have been disaster.
No,
right?
I think that from a technical standpoint, it's nearly seamless, and
Yeah,
really, it also avoids that phrase, the uncanny valley that they talk about, where as you're trying to do CGI characters or with robotics, something that looks too human, the mind, the human mind rejects it because it's not moving right. These aren't exactly human; they're just far enough off. Do I think that we're going to be seeing fully CGI humans anytime soon? I don't think so. I think that what Cameron does very wisely is he has characters that aren't supposed to look human, and so it's easier to accept them as characters.
All right, that'll be my last point. Then let me do the rating on it, because what I was amused by is they've got horses that aren't quite horses. Okay, they got all kind of creatures that aren't quite that kind of creatures, and I'm like, that looks too much like a horse. It's a little too convenient that they were going in that direction. But anyway, in the bottom line on
the horses look too much like horses. Thank you.
Because they're not supposed to be horses. Like you got this thing on Pandora that magically looks almost exactly like a horse, but a little cooler.
Right. Yeah.
Come on. All right. Anyway, in the end, you got to see it. It's an epic Hollywood movie, and it's not bad. I don't want anybody to get lost. It's a simple plot, but I like the plot. I mean, there was the
I think,
moment.
Matt, you make a great point. One about the humans, and you forget that, and that the plot, if it had been really complicated, it could have been less campy. But if it had been really complicated, there was a danger in missing some of the visual magistry of it.
Right, and in the plot, you do get the and
Okay,
which I like.
Wait a minute, let me give you my one little bit. How come, like, this future world where they're like, they can do everything, right? I mean, we got these giant flying hovercrafts and so forth. Really, the windows are going to crack on that thing?
Yeah, I see.
I don't know, just I'm like, all of a sudden it seemed like a Yugo.
All right, so, but in the end, I give it a very high score. I'm going to give it an 8.7. That's the highest I've ever given, even more than The Lovely Bones.
Highest I've ever given. We've done like 4 of these.
That's right.
Historic.
Historic.
Oh, you like Avatar more than The Lovely Bones? You're an idiot. What do you got, Matt?
I'm going to go with a 9.
Really?
I'm going to go with a solid 9.
You guys are too easy. 7.5. It's really good, though. It's good. It's worth seeing, but it's a little campy, but it's splendid. I could even be talked into an 8, and I may change my vote later. But right now, I'll go with 7.5. But my natural aversion to having to put the glasses on knocks it down to 7.5.
Yeah, the glasses pinch my head a little bit. My head's too big. Okay. Jared, do we have an average?
8.4.
8.4. That's as solid as it gets. Okay, so there you go. All right, now the
By the way,
Princess and the
we
Frog.
didn't mention it costs $400 million. $400 million.
That's insanity.
And no one thinks it's going to lose money. I mean,
it won't.
It won't. It'll
Exactly.
make, not only will it not lose money, as you point. I mean, first of all, it'll do great here. It'll also do well overseas. It'll make a gazillion dollars.
And you know what? The sequel, when they make it, will make even more.
Right. Of course, there'll be a sequel. Right?
Of course there will.
Yeah, right. Why not?
Have you seen all the TYT videos from today? Check out the Young Turks YouTube channel. Do it already.